Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to talk about this, and this is definitely a retro gaming geared. So the last few years, we've seen kind of the emergence of what's called ODEs, which are optical disc emulators. So I personally run what's called the SIO, which is an external device that goes onto the PlayStation with a small modification, and I also run what's called the oh shucks, now I forget what it is. It's for the GameCube, and it actually goes internal. You take the optical drive out of the GameCube and you pop this one into the socket. It works really, really well, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Uh, the other one that I've been running for a long time is this is called the GDEMU for the Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast is great because there's no weird cables, there's no weird anything. You literally just pop the optical drive out, and if you see right here, that little plug goes into a socket in the Dreamcast. It's all it has to happen. The modification literally takes 15 minutes. Now, this is a little bit different. Usually it's just the board that you get, but I bought this from somebody used, and it included this little metal, or I'm sorry, this little plastic 3D printed tray, which has an SD card extension. So a lot of the problems with these ODEs is that the SD card mount is actually on the board itself, but when you get this back in the console, you can't reach the SD card unless you take the whole darn thing apart again. And with like the GameCube, it's a real pain in the butt because the GameCube had, I'm not kidding, probably 20 screws to get it apart, and it was just kind of a pain in the butt. So this is actually, I believe this is actually like a prototype tray, but there's a guy that has a little company called Laser Bear Industries out of Nebraska, and he actually 3D prints SD card trays like this for a lot of the different ODEs. And like this one's pretty nice. You can actually pop the card in and out, and then because the GDEMU has a really weird quirk, and that is the file system that he used. You can only throw like so many files onto the drive and all kinds of weird stuff. Like to move games to the SD card, you have to put each one in an individual folder, and you can't name them. You have to just put a number on it. So some enterprise and community members actually created like a little app that you can just drag and drop stuff onto the card. But I really love the GDMU. I do. It did a lot of what I wanted it to do, but it's really limited. It's very limited in terms of how many games you can have on the card. And it's also limited because of the fact that another few community members for the Dreamcast actually. So the Dreamcast has. There's an old arcade platform like the Model 3 and Model 2 from Sega. There's an old arcade platform that I never got to see called the Atomus Wave. And the Atomus Wave is essentially just like the Naomi in architecture, where it's literally a Dreamcast inside of it. And I'd never played any of those games. The one that you hear about the most is called Dolphin Blue, for instance, which is a side-scrolling run and gun, and it's really good. And they actually kind of, I wouldn't say ported because the hardware is a Dreamcast, but they made it possible for these Atomus Wave games to run on the Dreamcast if you had the proper hardware. Now with the GDEMU, supposedly it is possible, but I've never gotten it to run successfully. Like I had a couple that would boot and then they would crash out and all kinds of weird stuff. So then word came down that if you had a Terraonion Mode, which is this bad boy, the games work on here with little to no tweaking. Now, I already had a mode because I have a mode in my Sega Saturn, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I have a couple other things from Terraonion, including the Super SD3, which is basically an add-on for the TurboGrafx or the PC Engine or the Super Graphics, which allows you to run both cart and CD games off an FPGA. So this is another FPGA device, and I love it for a few different reasons. Number one, compatibility is unmatched with other ODEs that I've found. The other thing is it gives you a lot of options. So you can actually use a USB flash drive you can use an SD card, or you can use a 2.5-inch SATA hard drive, and that's the hard drive connector right there. So it's really, really flexible. It's really compatible, and it's a little more expensive, yes. And the one for the Saturn was really expensive for me because I actually ordered it from Europe. Now, a couple of different retailers in the U.S. sell them. I got this from Stone Age Gamer, who I highly recommend. I've used them for quite a few things. I just got the N64 EverDrive from them, for example. So the cool thing about the mode is it's really easy to install, especially in the Dreamcast. In the Saturn, I had some problems because the ribbon cables. One of the ribbon cables was bad, so I had to order a new one. And the community was great about that up on Discord. But the Dreamcast is so freaking easy. It's not even funny. And I actually had another SSD laying around that I wasn't using anymore. And it's plenty big to put the entire Dreamcast library, including the Thomas Wave games, on here. I actually have this loaded with the Saturn games, too, because this used to sit in the Saturn, and I replaced this with an SD card. But this is a 250 gig SSD drive, and it's just going to pop right in here. And the thing about the mode, and a lot of the ODEs, if not all, is that the one thing that I don't like is if you want to interact with the storage ever again, you need to open the console up and pop everything out. And usually it's SD card, but even on the hard drive, you can't get it through the opening in the Dreamcast. It's too small. So for the Saturn, I actually just used, I don't think I have one around here. Oh, here we go. I actually got this for the Saturn. And this is just an extension cable for a SATA drive. And I just popped it through the opening where the optical drive used to sit, where the laser and everything used to be. This just popped right through the opening, and I set the hard drive inside the tray for the Saturn. The problem is that doesn't work on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast, the tray in there is just a little bit too small, and I can't use this. So then emerges Laser Bear Technologies. So I'm actually in the middle of putting this together right now, and this is an SD card extender. So what I'm going to be doing basically is, even though I'm putting a SATA drive in here, if I ever want to interact with anything again, this gives me the opportunity to interact with the SD card, because this is going to go into the opening of the Dreamcast in that tray, and it's going to fit right in there. And then I can just throw an SD card in there and do like a firmware update, or if I want to transfer a game, I think I can do that with the mode. But the firmware updates are the biggest thing. So that's what I'm in the middle of right now. And I actually got this not assembled for some stupid reason because I'm a moron. Because I bought one of these for the Saturn pre-assembled, and I had a real hard time with it. So I have to actually revisit that eventually. But this, I mean, I've only spent about 15 minutes on this. I had to basically put the SD card receiver in here, and then I had to put this piece on. There's just some small screws, but and I only have one good hand, so it's a little bit more difficult. But basically, this is going to go over the top of the SSD that's going to sit in there, and after I get it closed up, that's it. I don't have to open it up ever again, because anything I need to do, I should be able to do with the SD card, and this is going to be sitting right in when you flip the tray open, that's what's going to be working. So I really liked my GDEMU. It was a thing before the mode was even announced for anything, and that's why I have it. But I gotta tell you, man, I am really happy with this on the Saturn. I was waiting for this to get delivered, so I actually threw this in the Dreamcast because it's so freaking easy in that thing. It's literally just pop it in the socket and you're good. There's no settings you have to set, anything. And this Dreamcast actually has the HDMI installed as well. So it's the ultimate Dreamcast, in my opinion. And this mode works so well. You just drop the files on a folder. You navigate through it, picks everything up. It works with the GDI format, CDI format, just disc juggler files, everything. It's very, very compatible, and that's what's so great about this. So yes, it's a little more expensive, but man, if you can get one and you're thinking about doing something like this, get the mode. I'm really happy with this. Now, the GameCube, GC Loader, that's what it's called. The GC Loader for the GameCube is fantastic. I've had no problems with that one either. So highly recommended. And the GameCube is just as easy in terms of connecting this. There's no ribbon cables or anything. It's just getting to it takes longer because there's a lot more screws. But after this, I'll show you the finished product, but I'll record some footage, and you'll see how great this thing works, but also how great the HDMI for the Dreamcast looks. Because I have had so many problems with the Dreamcast in terms of getting good video out of it for years. Ever since, I mean, for old, CRTs and everything was great. I had a VGA cable right away. I had a VGA monitor that I ran it on a big 21-inch monitor. It was awesome. But the VGA connection on the OSSC, I have done nothing but struggle with that, and it just hasn't been a very pleasant experience. And I got the HDMI installed through a modder. It goes by Mobius Strip Tech. I usually go to him for all my stuff. Like I have a PlayStation HDMI now, and I've asked him if he's going to have any time to do that, and we're arranging that right now to get that installed. So I mean, the problem is right now all the modders seem to be really backlogged, like Dragon's Horde and whoever else. So and Voltaire. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. It's funny, I never really wanted a Dreamcast when they first announced it because of the flop that the Saturn was at the time in the U.S. And I just happened to be at KB Toys on the launch day of Dreamcast. I was at the food court of the mall for lunch, and I said, "Oh, I'll stop over and see how they sold." And they had one left, and I bought it. And the Dreamcast has become one of my favorite consoles ever. It came out at a great time in gaming. I love the visuals to this day. I don't feel like they're that dated at all. I mean, they're dated a little bit, obviously, compared to the PS4, PS5, Xbox, but I really love the Dreamcast, and I wish that the library was bigger, but what's there is really good. And those Atomic Wave games, I've only played a couple so far. There's some really fun stuff on there. So it's great not only adding the ease of use with the mode over the GDMU, but now I get to discover these new games that I've never been able to play before. And it's been so much fun. It's so much fun that she's just sleeping, as usual. So, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit, and I'll show you some footage afterwards, maybe talk over it a little bit. But just took the time to install this today because it's not too brutally hot up here yet. My office likes to get really warm in the afternoon, so I assume this will be done probably within about 10 minutes. I'll have it installed in another 5, and I'll be good to go. So stay tuned.